way, which is we have an ambition to become a large company, and to do that, to become an iconic company in the 21st century. And pardon the hubris, but that is the prize at the end of the rainbow, if you like, for insurance. Because as we said earlier, insurance companies can grow to be very, very large, and they can stay that way for 100 or 200, in some cases 300 years, which is just stunning to think about. So we have set our sight on seeing whether Lemonade could become that kind of a company. Now, we haven't yet. We've got a long way to go. The race is just getting started. I do think we are in pole position. I think if you were betting on who would make it there, you'd have to take a hard look at Lemonade as a good contender. But we've just got going, and we've got many years, I think decades of rapid growth ahead of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another live stream, and today we're going to look at Lemonade. This is the Lemonade CEO. Lemonade Insurance is a company that uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, to look at what are the best ways that we can provide a customer experience in insurance. What other insurance company not only has a customer-centric mindset, but is also using technology to gather data that is as powerful as artificial intelligence. Now, yeah, basically we're interested in this as an investment opportunity, and I'm already invested in the company, but I always like to look at things detail level. What does the team look like?
And when you're targeting, new audiences, and you mentioned maybe it's not so hard to message this from a communication perspective to millennials, to Gen Zers, in past interviews you've referenced like Lulu, right? I think is it Liberty? I think, these insurance companies that have very existential commercials they put out to try to appeal to folks. I mean, when you look at your own marketing and your own messaging, are you trying to differentiate from that? I mean, what's your tactic there?
Yeah, I think Lemonade has always been something of an irreverent brand. The very name is a kind of juvenile name that people say, you need a 3-letter acronym, or you have to have a name with state or farm in it. Otherwise, nobody will know it's insurance. And we decided to go with Lemonade. And then we went with this bright pink, of course, when every single insurance company in the nation has either the dark red or the dark blue, these kind of very masculine, reassuring colors, and we went with this very feminine and somewhat kind of juvenile pink. So I think we've certainly zigged where they zagged, or broken in a different direction. And I think that's true throughout. How we talk about ourselves, how we think, the irreverence carries through to the impish discussions that Maya has. She's our bot. To playful things that we do in our blog posts and elsewhere. So yeah, I think Lemonade does feel different. We like that idea. We think that different is better than better. And when insurance companies like Liberty Mutual try to emulate that by launching Lulu, it kind of looks sad. You can't have a 100-year-old brand that has spent all this time building up a certain culture, then pretend to be young and hip. It just, when that happens, you move uncomfortably. You feel it's like when your parents, try to use cool words in your presence, and they're like, no, mom, dad, just don't do that. It's that kind of a dynamic, I think.
So what I just showed was the Maya bot, right? Where, imagine, bro, have you ever seen another insurance company doing something like where you literally can, within minutes, sign up for insurance? That's pretty powerful. Now, there's a reason why Lemonade has a strong base of younger millennials. That's most of their audience. And in the long term, the growth for them is very strong. Imagine you're the go-to brand. One thing I want to kind of like compare Lemonade to is like the Google of insurance companies. A lot of the younger generation is going to be looking at you as the first as the brand to go to. And that's powerful in the long term. Now, I just wanted to, go over that section of it. One person I haven't looked much into is, well, I'm kind of in the way, but the CFO of Lemonade. I'm not gonna let these ads play. No sir, no sir, no way, no way. Okay, real quick, let's get into the video by Dave Lee on investing. He makes really good videos.
Hi, it's Dave. Welcome. Today I'm joined by Tim Bixby. He is the CFO of Lemonade Insurance.
This video is 2 hours long, y'all. Let me look at the chapters at least. Okay, what are the chapters? Tim's background, Tim's role at Lemonade. How was Tim introduced to Lemonade? I'm in the way. Breakdown of employees. Well, what's one metric is the most important to you as CFO? Net promoter. Oh, this is really good. This is powerful stuff. I don't know if I can go over all of this in one live stream. Definitely not. It's 2 hours. I'm gonna do y'all a favor, and I'm gonna watch this on 1.25. And I'm more like doing myself a favor because my attention span is. My apologies. It has been my sincere condolences that I admit defeat in my attention span.
And to share kind of your background, I know you've been the CFO for LivePerson and Shutterstock for many years. How has those experiences shaped you or given you kind of the background and tools to help Lemonade kind of in its current times?
Sure, yeah. So I've been with Lemonade for about 4 years, and I'm CFO and get to do all the pretty traditional things, but plus some untraditional things that the CFO gets to do in like a hyper-growth environment. I've done it a couple times before with different companies, but always in New York City, in companies going from small to big, at different paces. We usually in sort of hyper-growth mode, and making that transition from private company to public company. I've worked through the process of prepping 3 different tech companies, including Lemonade, to make that transition from private to public. And what I've kind of found is the CFO role, in my view, is the best role, is the most exciting role. And I think, while founders and CEOs kind of get the glamour and the pressure, there's something about being at a little bit behind the scenes, but also in the middle of everything. Guaranteeing or trying to guarantee that the companies can make it to the next step, whether it's hiring that next person or raising capital or hitting the next milestone. The financial role in companies at this stage is particularly energizing because it's a little less about accounting, that's there and that's important, and much more about just blocking and tackling and building. And the thing that I think I finally figured out, and it was really crystallized a bit at Lemonade, is the thing that I found I really enjoy and am, I hope getting pretty good at, is enabling founders. And what I found is, and you know this as well as anybody, founders are unique animals. The really strong, energizing, successful founders just bring to the startup world something unique. And the clearer that vision and the better they are at execution and kind of sharing that vision, typically the better they do. And what I figured out is I can support and complement that effort and maybe help that vision get to the market faster and get to customers faster. And that's kind of the background. I've been doing it for about 20 years. I've been in New York City on the East Coast the whole time. So I'm near Silicon Valley, but not in Silicon Valley. So I have a little bit of a different take on it. But the thing.
Imagine having that much experience with 20 years of just being behind the scenes and working with startups and working with founders and working literally just you must have learned a lot, with that background.
The thing I've learned is that if you can kind of carefully choose those founders, and you can't always choose their skills and what they're good at and what they're kind of struggling with. But if you can choose good founders and kind of get on that team, then it's a great place to be. And Lemonade, I think, has really proven that to a whole new level.
Yeah, I mean, it seems with Lemonade, your role as a CFO, it seems like because it's so intricately involved with finances and business model, unit economics, it seems like you would be kind of the glue that kind of almost brings things together in terms of the product vision, but merging it, connecting it with the actual numbers, the actual like deployment, how everything goes. I mean, do you kind of see yourself in that role where you're kind of like the mediator between in the company a lot of times, just making sure that the product and vision, gets to execution in the right way?
To some extent, yes. I think we're at Lemonade. We're blessed with some pretty clear thinkers and communicators, and so it's less of a need for me to support something that's already I think working really well in terms of communicating a clear vision, energizing employees, communicating to customers, communicating to investors and potential investors. But I think where you're headed is exactly right. Where picking the right words and terms and metrics. And where to emphasize and where to de-emphasize, it is really important. And I think one of the things I think we've learned, just particularly over the few quarters since we've been public, is that the work we put in and invested in choosing those metrics and how we describe the business and how we bridge from traditional insurance, where there's a lot of terms and jargon and things that are important in understanding the mechanics of the business, to the world we want to be in and the world our customers in, which is a technology world and a digital world and a social media world. That's a big gap. And so I think an area where I helped a bit and helped really hopefully energize that bringing those two worlds together is in those metrics. What are the words we use? When do we talk insurance? When do we talk tech? When do we talk just plain simple language? So a lot of it, I think you're right. It's around that language. And then from an investor standpoint, we've got some really thoughtful, sophisticated investors. And what we're learning is that it's not institutional investors only who are thoughtful and clever investors. It's every investor. Retail investors, new investors, younger investors have, I think, brought to us thoughtful insight about how they're thinking about the business, how they'd like us to think about the business, what they're understanding, what they're not understanding. I think we as a team have learned as much, in the past year in new vibrant markets as I think I've learned in any year in my 20 or so year career and in doing this kind of work.
Mm-hmm. How were you introduced to Lemonade, the company in the beginning, and how has the experience in terms of values and culture in Lemonade been different than your experiences at Shutterstock and LivePerson?
So Lemonade's a unique animal, and every startup's unique in its own way. And by definition, the reason startups exist is because someone has a unique vision they want to bring to consumers and users. I actually was looking for a new role, and I looked for quite a while. I had left Shutterstock. I actually took a year off and promised myself, over my career that someday I was going to try and do it, take a year off and kind of reassess, look at opportunities and look pretty carefully before I jumped into the next thing. And I actually pulled it off when I left my last role at Shutterstock. And I looked at a number of things, lots of really interesting roles, primarily in New York, really impressive companies, and lots of them you've heard of and are familiar with. And because I wanted to take some time off, it was easier to say no than to say yes. And what I found was when you want to say no, it's easy to say no. And I got to a point where when Lemonade came along, I looked as hard as I could. I couldn't find anything that I didn't like. Lemonade came at the market in a unique way, and it was a couple of things. And I think you're probably seeing some of these or most of these. One is the sheer size of the market is extraordinary. One of the struggles of a successful startup and a tech-enabled startup is the better you do, the closer you get to tapping out your market. And so it's kind of this contradiction, right? Where if you're wildly successful, which can happen sometimes, and I've actually seen it a couple times where things are going really, really well, you start to see the end of your market coming a little bit closer. And that can be scary. And that pushes you to make sure you're expanding your market, expanding your TAM, expanding your product line. In insurance, it's about as unlimited as an industry can be. And so that was one thing that I thought was super interesting. The second
$5 trillion market cap. I mean, not market cap, but the market for insurance is in the trillions. And that's most likely going to go up as people get older, as the population of the world expands, as developing countries start becoming more developed and more people actually are able to afford insurance. Different things like that is just huge opportunity, y'all.
Second thing was the clarity of vision. Two really impressive folks who hadn't worked together before, our founders, Chai and Daniel, coming at an industry with a blank sheet of paper. That was kind of a wow. And with further reflection, I think it really jumped out at me is lots of people have looked at this industry. You've got large incumbents who are looking at it carefully every day, and they see the world changing and they want to change. And then you've got other folks who might be looking to start businesses or looking to launch something new. They have tended to shy away from insurance. It's a little complex. It's highly regulated. There's lots of scary stuff. It looks like it takes a long time to get anywhere. And those are the things that made Shai and Daniel say, that's what we want. We want to choose something that's very hard and come at it in a radically different way. That was super impressive to me. And that's what really, when I was looking at different opportunities, I kind of stopped dead when I got to Lemonade and got to know Shai and Daniel.
What stage was Lemonade at when you first joined the company about 4 years ago?
Well, in my mind, it was a little further along. When you have those conversations with founders, things look pretty amazing. And I kind of envisioned this, team of hundreds. It was about, I think, less than 40 people globally. A little small team in New York, small team in Israel. So, thousands of customers, some revenue, some premium, and a team of just a couple of dozen, just a few dozen.
Yeah, and now you guys are at about 400 people, is it, or what's your employee count?
We're past 600.
Oh, 600! Wow. Okay.
So we roughly doubled at year end. We just reported about five, just under 600. So today we're about 600 people. 600
people. Where does that break down? Like, what percent is in, let's say, product development, R&D versus, let's say, marketing versus customer service, et cetera?
So I would think of it in sort of rough strokes. About 25% of the people, of the headcount, are product and R&D. So the folks who build the product, write the code, deliver that vision that the customer sees and feels, about 25%. And then something less than 50%, 40-something percent, is customer facing. So though much of our operation is automated and very data and technology driven, we do have human folks who support customers through a customer experience team and a claims experience team, a claims management team. And so that's a little less than half of the headcount. And then the remainder would be sales, finance, legal, and then all the compliance that's required to manage a fully licensed insurance operation.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think the automation part is going to expand more, the automated part of their business, and I think the amount of people and customer service needed is going to go down, because think about it, they're using AI, machine learning, to improve drastically. And so they're going to keep getting better and better of how can we serve the customer? And if they do that times 2, times 4, times 5, times whatever, over many decades, there could be a time where very few people even need to face a customer. That's just some thoughts.
And the headquarters is in New York, correct? And then you guys have another big office in Israel, right? Is it Tel Aviv?
We do. So we have four locations worldwide at this point. And the two larger ones, they're actually about three roughly equivalent. So Tel Aviv, New York, and Phoenix, Arizona. So in Scottsdale, just outside Phoenix. So those are roughly equal in size. And then we have a somewhat smaller hub of a couple of dozen folks in Amsterdam. And Amsterdam supports our European operations, along with a bit from New York and Tel Aviv. And that makes up the whole global footprint.
Okay, perfect. As CFO, is there like one metric or one number that, you think is by far the most important? Like, let's say, if you could only look at one number and all the other numbers were hidden from you and, you could just follow one number every day or every week, what would that number be for you as CFO of Lemonade?
It's a tough one, choosing one. It's funny. I think it felt like we spent a year and a half choosing our handful of metrics that I think are pretty good. If we'd had to choose one, it probably would have taken longer. I would answer it this way. There has to be a balance, and so you can't choose one. And if I had to choose the one, it would probably be the one we chosen as our primary metric, which is in-force premium. That is the measure of the value we're creating. More premium coming from a customer on an annualized basis. So that's the definition of in-force premium, the annualized premiums that a customer pays to us, because that really represents that number and the growth in that number over time, our expanding footprint. It's the protection that customer has over his belongings, and they're paying us a small portion of that so that we can cover their claims. And it represents customer growth, premium per customer growth. It represents product diversification. All those, I think, are captured in that in-force premium number. Okay. And then to maybe hedge the question, to kind of push it back to you a bit, is I would really be remiss if we didn't say that customer satisfaction or net promoter score wasn't also critically important, because that tells you how customers feel about what they're buying. Because you can be growing and generating income and profit and those good things over time, but how a customer feels about what they're buying and how they talk to their friends about what they're buying and how they think about what's going to happen when renewal time comes, that's really much more captured in net promoter score. And so that's something we track very closely, but also very proud of. It's in the 60s or 70s or above, and it has been consistently almost since day one of the business, and that's very rare. And is multiples of what you typically see in the insurance business. So I'm cheating a little bit, but I'd have to throw those two in there, and then there's a few more after.
I'm going to end it off there because that's a pretty good way to end it off. Insurance, Lemonade does insurance differently. Lemonade's team is very interesting, and their vision is very interesting, and it's something that I'm going to continue to look into, so make sure to stick around and subscribe. BenJ011, Ben J Live. I'll see y'all.